could not have imagined that there'd be this many of you, that have come here to hear my story. But here you are. There's that old African proverb that people speak of quite often that says that someone's never forgotten as long as you remember them, as long as you say their name. It's why these stories are important. It's why I feel it's important for me to share this story with you. In order to do so, I will first introduce myself as James. And to understand my story, you have to know an individual by the name of the Marquis de Lafayette. Now, does everybody in this room know who the Marquis de Lafayette is? Anyone who doesn't? The Marquis de Lafayette was a Frenchman who, in 1777, had heard about this American Revolution and decided that he was going to come to America and fight. When he arrived in 1777, he was 19 years old. But he became a general under George Washington. And, well, my time with him began some years later in 1781. So at this point, he is 23 years old. He is in Virginia, playing a cat and mouse game with the British that are there. Now, at the time, I am not a part of the military whatsoever, though I was owned by a man by the name of William Armistead, and I was his manservant, which means that whatever William needed, I made sure he had, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At that time, he was the head or the commissary of the public stores. Those are the public warehouses in Williamsburg. Goods were shipped to and from the warehouse. At the time, because we were at war, most of those deliveries were made to the Continental Army and the Marquis de Lafayette. One day, William comes into the public stores, into one of the buildings, and says to me, "James, I've made a delivery in error to the Marquis de Lafayette. He asked me for, it's been 40 years, what was it he asked for? Yes, it was musket flints. But instead of musket flints, I sent him Monmouth caps. Anyone know what a Monmouth cap is? It is a wool knit hat that goes on your head. Let me ask you, who needs a wool knit hat in Tidewater, Virginia in July?" So of course, William says, "James, take every musket you can, load it onto the carts, deliver it personally. Oh, see this box here too? Make sure you also deliver it to the Marquis de Lafayette, with my apologies." I didn't ask what was in the box, I just made my way to the Marquis de Lafayette. Now, if you've never met the Marquis de Lafayette, he is quite an individual. Upon meeting him, he greeted me in that European fashion. 4 times because he's a marquis. And I deliver him these musket flints. And he is very happy to have them, but of course, there's still this one box that's unaccounted for. And he looks at me and he asks, "What's in the box?" He made me open the box. We opened the box, we looked inside, and our eyes got wide. Whiskey. Bottles and bottles of whiskey. Oh, that made the Marquis de Lafayette very happy for several days, I heard. What I didn't know at the time was that it was not the first shipment that had been sent to the Marquis de Lafayette from the public stores in error. And the Marquis de Lafayette had written a letter to the public stores and to William Armistead saying that the deliveries had been handled so poorly that his men had been reduced to drinking bad whiskey. So of course, William wanted to make sure that he had plenty of good whiskey. The Marquis holds up one of the bottles of whiskey, he looks at me, and he says, "What is your name, most kind man?" I said, "My name is James." He said, "Well, James, since you brought me all of this, you should help me drink some of it." Now understand, my job was to deliver those musket flints to the Marquis. I had not been asked to sit and have drinks with the gentry. But I learned a very important lesson about the Marquis de Lafayette on that day, the first of many lessons I would learn in my time with him. It was this simple fact. When the Marquis de Lafayette asked you to sit and have a drink with him, You sit and have a drink with him, which is exactly what I did. What was unusual to me, well, it was twofold. One, someone of his class, of his status, would never ask me to sit at the same table and break bread with them. But he did. Second, he then asked me questions about my life, which someone of his station had never done before. And I will never forget it because many of those questions, well, I'll share them with you. The question that I remember the most, he asked me, at what age did I know that I was owned by another man, and how did that make me feel? I thought about it, and I told him that I wasn't sure that I could answer that question. I was born in 1748, but the first memories I have in my life, 1753, 1754 maybe. So I'm 6. And all I can feel is that something is wrong. But when you're that young and something's wrong, you don't know how to put your feelings into words, do you? What does a 6-year-old usually do when they don't feel good? They whine, they cry, they get angry, don't they? That's what a 6-year-old does when he can't express himself. Actually, now that I think about it, some adults still continue to do that, don't they? Yeah. But it wasn't until I became an adult that I was able to put into words what I had been feeling as that 6-year-old child, and it was this. There is one great gift that the Lord God above has given to every man, woman, and child on this earth, and it is our free will. And what sort of relationship can you have with your God when man, not God, has taken that away from you? Even at 6 years old, I could feel that freedom was a precious gift that had been stripped away from me, and I was angry. The Marquis continued to ask me, he said, "Are you educated?" And I said, "Well, yes, I did learn my reading, my writing, my numbers when I grew up with Master William." He said, "Oh, it must be so wonderful to be so educated." And I said, "Not completely. Don't mishear me. Education is a beautiful gift, but to the slave, it is also a double-edged sword." And what I mean by that, I asked the Marquis, I said, "I'm a slave, yes? Oui. Which means I am property, yes? Oui. Though I'm property, that means I have a certain monetary value, yes? Oui. What happens when you have a piece of property and you add to it? It becomes worth more money, doesn't it? Your property learns how to read, worth more money. Knows how to write, worth more money. Knows his numbers, worth more money. Very quickly, I became one of the most lucrative pieces of property that William Armistead owned. And if he should ever need to pay off his debts, as we are all in debt, I am most likely to be the easiest and most lucrative piece of property for him to sell. That's what I meant when I said to the Marquis de Lafayette that education is a beautiful gift as well, but it is a double-edged sword for those of us that, well, we are not given control to do with that education as we please.